Hey, welcome back to the Lick of the Week videos. This is our third video in our little series we're calling Exploring Up the Neck. First video laid the groundwork for basic positions and chord shapes, partials that you should know. The second video went into playing back up from just simple vamps and rolls to more advanced Scruggs licks up the neck. And in this video I'd like to take the same song. I think I'll stay around and try to play some soloing with it. Now for me as a player and as a teacher, I try to think of soloing in two kind of camps, maybe, or two ways of thinking about it. I'm either trying to capture as much of the melody as I can, or some of the melody enough so it sounds coherent and people can tell what I'm playing, or I'm just playing improvisation, which means I don't care what the melody is. I don't consciously try to capture melody. If I accidentally hit a note that sounds like a melody note, that's okay, but that's not my goal. I'm just trying to string together licks and phrases and scales, whatever ideas musically that I like, over the chord changes that match the chords in the song. So let's look at, for the purpose of this series, let's try to take a middle of the road approach. We don't want to capture every single note like you would sing it, because you don't need to do that. Partly because if you're taking up the neck break, it's probably coming later in the song. The song has already been kicked off by an instrument. Breaks have been played. The verses have been sung. Once you sing a verse and a chorus, any breaks that come after that don't have to be melody unless you just decide to make it that way, because everybody will know what the song is at that point. And very seldom will you kick a song off with an up the neck break, because you're trying to capture as much of the melody as you can, usually with a kickoff on a song like this, a vocal tune. So I'm going to take that middle of the road approach and just say, let's sketch out the melody like a connect the dot puzzle. We don't need 1,000 dots, we only need just a few, and then hopefully the listener can tie those dots together with lines to make a picture of the song. I like to use analogies, as you can tell. So let's examine the melody as it relates to the chords. The G part of the melody, because we're playing this in G, would be, "You just told me that you're leaving." And again, I'm not trying to capture every note that I sing, but what I call the strong fundamental notes. You just told me that you're leaving. There's a couple of note choices in there, that, which is an A note, that are not very strong. They lead you around to different places. I'm going to give you a zoom here. But you don't actually need those notes to have a sketch of the melody. So I'm playing this B note, B as in Bob, and this is a G, which are two notes out of your F-shaped position. But you can also find those notes here and the open fifth. Third string at 12 is the same as the open fifth, which is the same as the 17th fret of the 4th string. So you have three different G note choices above the 12th for that. And then if you go an octave higher, and you have actually another G note that's even higher. But let's try to stay in the same octave range of our voice as we can, because it's easier to sketch out the melody this way. So I have, you just told me, kick out these notes, that you're kind of like Red River Valley if you listen to the way it's sung. But again, this is a different tune, so let's try to I don't want to lead you astray with another song, but it does have similarities to Red River Valley there. Now you just told me, I'm going to use the open fifth instead of the third string. Now the next choice, or the next step logically that you have to do, is take those notes and embed them in a roll. And try to put the first note, you just told me, put those notes in some kind of logical pattern. Make up any roll you want, but make sure that note is first, and then you keep coming back to it. Now we have, that you're leaving. I'm going to use a little bit of technique, a little bit of ornamentation. I'm going to slide into the note. Which sounds kind of like, you just told me that you're leaving, a little bit of a blues note. Instead of doing that, maybe I'll just take a classic Scruggs approach, which is to use this blues position. 11 and 12 on the bottom two strings is a partial, actually in this case a partial G minor chord. So I'm going to use that for a blues effect. So you just told me that you're leaving. Now I have this, a hole. Listen to this hole. You just told me that you're leaving. 1 and 2 and 3 and there's a 3-beat, almost a 4-beat window where there's no melody. What are you going to do there? Are you just going to roll? 1 and 2 and 3 and, or are you just going to leave a space? I'll typically try to put a lick into that hole. And again, that lasts about 3, somewhere close to 4 beats, and you fudge a little bit with your syncopation. But you could use any lick you like, as long as you can fit it in that 3-beat hole. It doesn't even have to be a lick that I'm using. It could be a different lick. It could be a rollover chord. It could be anything you like, but you're just trying to fill those 3 beats with something. You just told me that you're leaving. Now the melody goes up. On the special leaving town. And then you'll hear the D come up. Town. But what is the remainder of that G? Because we have actually, you just told me that you're leaving. Hole, hole, hole. On the special leaving. Then town would be D. So how many total beats do we have to play the melody or the sketch of the melody over G? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 3 measures of G to play the melody over, however many notes we want to play, sketch it out, as few or as many as we think we can put in, and then whatever filler we want to put in around there has to flow over that and around it. And then if we want to put a lick, a dedicated Scruggs lick in there, we have to find the holes where that will go. So this is what I'm coming up with for my up the neck break that has some melody in it. Here's the remainder of my G measures. On the special, on special leaving town. So I'm playing out of this partial G. And again, I'm not trying to capture every single note on the special leaving. I'm just trying to capture the fundamental or the strong, which is, in this case, a B note. And again, you notice I'm doing a slide, or I could do a hammer. You could do a choke. Anything that emphasizes that note, which in this case is a D. D is in David. And I'm just adding this note because it is specially, it is a melody note. It's actually a note above the 2nd string. It's the 2nd string at 17. That's an E note. E is in Edward. So I've got a partial that gives me a semblance of the melody, allows me to sketch some of the fundamental notes. And now, when I play this note for D, that's the only melody note that there is in the D measure. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. How long does that note last? 1 and. So when you hit the 3rd string at 14, which is an A note, that's one of the notes of your D chord, that's the only note that's a melody note. The rest of that measure is just filler. So what am I going to do with the other 3 beats that's left over? I could play a lick, I could play a roll, or I could just leave the 3 beat with nothing in it. I think I'll play a lick. And the reason I'm choosing that lick is it brings me back to here, which is my root note out of my D chord. It brings me back to my D. So it's a nice way to provide a cool lick in that hole on the special leaving town filler. And then I can come back to this note, which is my root note, which brings me right back to D. or I could stay there. Or I could just roll. But whatever you decide to do, just remember you're trying to find the melody. In this case, the D, as in David, the D chord only has one measly melody note. The rest is 3 beats of filler. Now the next G measure comes up. I love you, dear, but I won't follow. When you go to G, that's a measure, and then we'll wind up in C. What will I do for this G measure? I love you, dear, but I won't follow. I could actually repeat kind of the same positional logic that I used before I went to D. But this time I want to make sure I play this note out of my C position. My second string at 13. Why? Follow. That is the note that's in the C measure, and it's the only note, one note in C. So just like your D measure before, where the third string was the melody note and it lasted a beat, and then the other 3 beats was just filler of some kind. When you go to C, now the second string is the melody note, the fundamental, the only note, in this case, it's the note that you strike in the beginning of your roll section, and then figure out how you're going to fill around that for the other 3 beats. So we have, I love you, dear, but I won't follow. I think I'll do that. Then you have, I just think I'll stay around, which is a quick G, 2 beats to D for 2, and then finish up with a full measure of G. That's what we call the tag section of the song. And I'm going to wind up leaving, I'm going to do this as what I call my exit move. I'm going to use the blues lick and then finish up with this Sally Gooden position at 8-9. So I've exited my up the neck break. Now here's what I've got for the whole thing. Alright, now D. Now what I'm going to do for the C. G. And then that's my exit lick that covered my D back to G. Now I can keep improvising, I could keep chopping out even more of the melody and putting more licks in, but what you're doing is you're slowly dissolving the melody away. And at some point, if you dissolve enough of the melody away, the only thing that lets anybody know where you're playing is just the chord changes and you playing licks over them. So in the beginning, I think it's a good idea to choose just a handful of melody notes, the strong, fundamental notes, the ones that you hear, that are really stark and strong, notes that are repeated 3 or 4 times, and let those be the notes that you build around. Think about the chord changes, how you're putting your notes together, decide what filler, what backup licks, anything you want to use around those notes is valid, and you'll have a pretty good sounding break that has enough melody in it so most people could say, oh, that's a cool up the neck break too, I think I'll stay around. And again, feel free to substitute, have fun, and remember, it's all based on chord shapes, partial shapes, full shapes to some degree, moving, your ability to move around, find the fundamental building block notes, the ones that you can string together to make that outline of the melody. We're not, if this was a paint by number picture, if we had 500 numbers in there to represent the whole picture, maybe we're getting 30 or 40 of the outline of the picture, so that at least you can tell what it is, you know. So that'll wrap up this little series, and if you want to do improvisation, just remember, instead of me doing a video for this, you would string together G licks, C licks, D licks, or scale licks, whatever ideas that you have in your arsenal. You would string those together over the chord changes, not worrying at all about melody. So I don't think I need to really do a video on that. Maybe I'll conclude this video with just a few passes of me playing up the neck, and you'll hear at some point I'll be playing my break structured around the melody like we talked about in the beginning of this video, and then I'll slowly dissolve the melody away with each subsequent break until I'm just playing cool licks and phrases. So this will conclude the series, and I appreciate it, and I'll be looking for some more Lick of the Weeks down the pipe. Thank you.